All right. So this is a continuation from the basement. Still in the basement, as you can see. Isn't the basement beautiful? Sure is, ain't it? Anyway. About to get into another story, building off of the last one. This one's awfully long, 26 minutes. I should have broken it in twain, but fuck it, right? So what started it, well, that's too long of a story. I was skating down here to State Park and a song popped in my head and I was like, I want to listen to that. It's been a while. The song was Your Signs by Nonpoint. I was looking at it through several different lenses. Of course, the conversation between the self, the biology, and the soul, the higher self, the Christ consciousness. A conversation between the soul and the ego. But also this question of what am I clinging on to that I don't consciously know of yet? And I'm not going to find my way there or through it by feelings alone now, am I? Not me. Maybe other people are. But at the end of the day, even though we're all connected, sharing the same atoms that make up the stars, we have individual experience. Our brains get wired based on the environment. Our own behavior patterns solidify these habits, these ways of moving through the world. And so, the Gray Path is an emergent attempt to dismantle these old ways of behaving, these old ways of thinking. Not because we have answers, a final solution to the problem that every humans face, that all humans face. And in order to move in this reality, every thought, every emotion should survive reality contact. And at the same time, our lived experience, our personal mythology, our spirituality doesn't get overwhelmed by observation or data, nor does the observation or data get overwhelmed by the lived experience. This is the wobble. It's a wobble. So, see what happens. This is called The Gray Path, the dialogue, spoken by, I have his name finally, Sir Laurence Olivier. Yeah, beautiful, right?
The Grey Path, the dialogue. Read in the voice of Sir Laurence Olivier. We have built the architecture. We have placed the artifact upon the table. We have moved methodically through the 8 postures, from the quiet receptivity of the first note to the final uncompromising boundary of the last. And now we arrive at the only place that matters, the dialogue. Not the text, not the protocol, a space where the architecture meets the living nerve. You asked for a monologue. Something with weight, something measured, commanding, with substance behind every syllable, something true to form. So let us speak the truth of what this is. It is a discipline of radical sovereignty. Look at what we traced in the music, in the reflection, in the silent hours of the morning. The old operating system relies on the illusion that someone else holds the key. It hands you a script, whispers instructions into your ear, makes you worry just a little more to keep you tethered, and points its bright, polished neon signs directly into an absolute vacuum. And for years, decades perhaps, you walk toward that vacuum, believing it to be a destination, until the body stops cooperating, until the tension builds, until the realization surfaces, quiet and undeniable. Your signs are pointing to nowhere. That's exactly where I won't go. That is not a conclusion. That is an exit. And what happens after the exit? Not a grand recovery. Not a victory lap. An archaeological excavation of one. Sitting in the basement, 43 years old. Stripped of titles, of statuses, of external validation, of all the artificial metrics the world uses to measure a life. Stripped of everything except the one tool that cannot be taken from you. Your own capacity to observe, to look at what is real, to hold multiple interpretations without collapsing into certainty, to allow mystery to remain mysterious, to revise your understanding when tomorrow brings better light. That is the gray path. It does not promise you a map to paradise. It teaches you how to read the terrain beneath your feet, exactly where you are standing right now. Even if that terrain is a concrete floor in the basement of your parents' house, surrounded by the quiet hum of a life being painstakingly, deliberately reclaimed. The loom is spinning. The artifact has been processed. The protocol has been run. Now, drop the notes, drop the filter. What comes up when you hear that back? What is alive in the room right now that hasn't been spoken yet? The gray path, a protocol for inquiry, a worked example. Using Nonpoint's Your Signs, read in the voice of Sir Laurence Olivier. Part 1. The protocol. This is the architecture itself. It never changes. It is a method for approaching any artifact. A song, a dream, a conversation, a memory, a text, a feeling, with discipline and openness. The protocol has 8 movements. They are not steps to complete. They are postures to inhabit. 1. Receive what appeared. No judgment. Before analysis, before interpretation, before anything. Simply notice that something has arrived. An artifact has crossed your path. It may be external, a piece of music, a conversation, a news story, a gesture from another person. It may be internal. A dream, a memory, an emotion, a recurring thought. Whatever it is here now. Receive it as it is. Not as you wish it to be. Not as you fear it to be. Just as it is. 2. Observe what is literally present, no meaning yet.
Sounds easy enough, doesn't it? Try it. Take yourself back to middle school or high school or college. Observation. Were you taught to be observers of the external world? Sure. Were we ever taught to be observers of our internal architecture, chaos? Imagine some of us were, but not formally. So this is discipline. It's a discipline, it's a tool. For those of us that may understand that God, whatever you want to call God, exists outside of religion, because let's face it, religion puts God in a box. We as humans tend to speak as if we have certainty about the unseen. We don't. We have our interpretation of the unseen. I don't hear anybody acknowledging just that. When people speak, all the time, it's as if certainty exists, and I'm guilty of this myself. But in order to change something, you must first acknowledge and accept things for as they are. And to many people, in my experience, that is a very difficult task.
This is the discipline of description without interpretation. Describe what can be observed, not what it means, not what it implies, not what it reminds you of, just what is there. If it is a text, what words appear? What is the structure? What repetitions exist? What is absent? If it is a conversation, what words were spoken? What tone was used? What was the timing of responses? What was not said? If it is a feeling, where in the body does it live?
Now, even this takes discipline, because tone can certainly be subjective, right? What I think is somebody getting short with me, you need to be careful how you describe it, because their tone may have been that way, but you can easily bleed into interpretation. And that's when the mind starts weaving things that aren't true.
What is its texture, its temperature, its movement? Describe without explaining. That is the discipline. 3. Interpret. What are several plausible readings? Not one, several. Now meaning enters, but it enters as hypothesis, not certainty. Generate multiple interpretations. At least 3, preferably 5. Make them as different from each other as possible. If one reading is, this is a song about a romantic relationship, generate another. This is a song about the self. Generate another. This is a song about systems. Generate another. This is a song about the nervous system. Hold them all lightly. None are true yet. They are possible. That is enough. 4. Reality, contact, and mystery. Which parts are observable? Which parts are inference? What evidence would change my mind? What evidence would strengthen my confidence? Confidence.
Just had a thought here. Maybe I need to create a video like a lesson. As I understand, having worked in education, it's very difficult to teach something if you don't know it, don't practice it. But also, if you want to learn and become a master of your own craft, you better damn well know how to teach it in a way that people can understand. So you don't have one way of teaching. You have a dynamic way of teaching based on those that you're, the audience that you're talking to. And so the beautiful thing here is I'm an audience of one. And that's not to say I'm speaking to myself. I'm speaking to the me and everybody else and the everyone else in me.
What remains unknowable today? This is where the framework becomes distinctive. Reality contact asks you to distinguish what you can actually observe from what you are inferring. It asks what would count as evidence. And it asks the equally important question, what evidence would strengthen my confidence? Revision is not only about overturning conclusions. Sometimes repeated observation increases confidence while still remaining open to future revision. That is a balanced epistemology. Mystery asks the other question, what remains beyond the reach of this inquiry today? What cannot be known right now? What might surface tomorrow that isn't accessible today? This is not a failure of the method. It is a permanent invitation. Reality contact prevents fantasy. Mystery prevents arrogance. You need both. 5. Recursive inquiry. Where is this alive in me? Not. Is this true? Very different question. The artifact is no longer external. It becomes a mirror. You ask not whether the interpretation is correct, but where it resonates inside you. Where have you lived this pattern? Where does this image appear in your own life? Where does this feeling life? Where does this
Going back to the video earlier, these are the questions This is how the mind works to take you to the places that you don't want to go, or that you've buried and thought you've been done and dusted. Your signs are pointing to nowhere, and that's exactly where I won't go. Your signs are pointing to nowhere, and no one that I know. That's all you care to show me. We can look at this in terms of relationally, or as going back to the beginning of the video, the ego and the soul communicating.
Feel familiar? Where does this story touch something you have not yet named? These questions are not answered quickly. They are carried, they settle, they surface when ready. 6. Embodiment, go live. Observe. Come back, revise. No final answer, only a better map. The inquiry does not end with understanding. It ends with action. Or more precisely, with lived attention. What does this mean for the coming days? How will you notice when this pattern appears? How will you respond differently, even slightly? You're not trying to become a different person. You are trying to observe the person you already are, and to remain willing to revise again, and again, and again. 7. Revision. What has shifted through this process? What old certainties have softened? What new questions have emerged? Where is the map still incomplete? Revision is not an admission of failure. It is the sign that you are alive to new information. Every conclusion is provisional, not because truth doesn't exist, but because your understanding of it can always deepen. Hit 8. Archive. The reflection is now part of the record, not as a finished product, as a waypoint. The archive becomes the next artifact. Synthesize new artifact, because archives do not merely store. They reveal patterns across time. Without synthesis, the archive is a library. With synthesis, it becomes a laboratory. And the spiral begins again.
How deep do you want to go? We all want the easy way. Reach a point where you've dealt with your own wounding, your own trauma. Acknowledge the trauma that you've caused others over the years. And then you say, okay, I'm good enough. Because, well, you always were. But why stop there? Because now we reach a point, after wobbling our way along the gray path and doing the work, that we have a baseline contentment higher than ever before. Ever. I can't remember the last time I had a 6-month run. Or all in all, things have just been great. Now I've had more money, more external pleasures in the past. But all that shit sucks compared to what's in here. And so I'm barely scratching the surface of the power of this thing. And maybe this thing too. You see, I came into this world with a big fucking heart. One major event followed by 1,000 cuts afterward kind of leaves you anemic, lethargic, dead inside. No, Spencer, I wasn't joking. Now, that's not to say that I had a few days here and there Or I dip down? Absolutely. Do I run from those or try to medicate it away? No. If I do medicate with cannabis, it's to go in deeper, from a different angle. It's like extracting something. Trying to get a rusty nut off a bolt, right? I pull out a different tool, maybe hit it with a different angle, get a little more leverage. Practical application, spiritual practice, rooted in the nervous system, in biology, with evidence-based approaches that can be evaluated honestly. I haven't come across any spiritual community that implements science or the scientific method and sees them as two tools trying to solve similar questions. How did I make it through the dark container? The system's analog, baby. Biology is analog. It doesn't operate in isolation. I mean, it does, but it senses the world around it. So you can't cage biology in a digital prison. And after someone's looking back honestly at the self had dissolved much of the ego, understood the shadow, and maybe that's why and how I ended up in the dark container in the first place. Not consciously. It's like my shadow saw something and said, you can learn from this. Oh, I was the student and the teacher. Those people will be learning for the rest of their lives. As for me, well, they'll be learning because of me their whole life. I've already done much of the learning. It was just the application where I fell short. Self-esteem, confidence, these types of things. And also understanding that the best version of me, the most successful by societal standards, achieving that as a wounded person, oh, that would have been bad news. I would have been a cutthroat son of a bitch. And I, probably would have killed myself with too much drugs, partying. So, it's a blessing that I've been a failure by system standards. Thank you, system, for showing me me. So, for anybody that wants to rip off the gray path, there's a little nugget for you to take and bastardize. I won't give you any more. And actually, how would a spiritual community, especially the ones spiritual, that actually control and manipulate those within their community, how do they even involve science at this point without just looking like complete imbeciles? Well, they can't. They would have to walk back everything that they've been saying about their silly alchemy, their witchery. I don't want to use science to destroy all that shit. But if you're going to push me to that, people, I'm going to enjoy every second of fucking doing that. Might take me my whole life, but you see, when I have things to fight for, things that I believe in, and I have a solid head on my shoulders, well, I know other people out there know exactly what I'm talking about. Once the ego's been checked and sleeping, snoozing. Don't mistake my tone for passion. And don't mistake my passion for anything other than that. So as I continue to build all that I'm building, not just the gray path, everything that's on paper, in a folder, in a notebook, we're still up here. This truly is limitless, people. This isn't arrogance. This is me figuring out something and wanting to share it with those who are humble enough and have the discipline and are honest enough with not only themselves, but with everybody else. A toolkit. And permission, not because you need it. No, because people need a model. Not a model as in, this is how things work. No, just a model, and it's okay to be yourself. Whether you're riding a high or a low, why put the mask on? Especially in front of people who can see through every mask you wear. It's a beautiful day. I gotta get back to school. We'll get round 2, chapter 2 later. Or not. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for receiving and allowing me to share if you've made it this far. I do appreciate the subscribers and those that just watch the video and don't subscribe, the lurkers. Hey, how's it going? So thank you for joining the channel that, has no real identity at this point. We have several other channel ideas brewing, but as you can see, I'm still figuring stuff out. Alone, but not alone. I know when people are going to come into my life and I use my intuition, discernment, and my mind to evaluate in real time whether I want to let these people in and how much I'm actually going to share this time. Because I've given way too much and I've received so little. It's also because I've asked for so little from people, but also myself. So, thank you for joining me. We build as we go. Right now, like I said, audience, architect, engineer, and layman. Party of one. Open to anyone willing to find peace and truth. Because in that process, you will discover how much you actually love yourself unconditionally just by showing up and doing that. You won't see it immediately. You'll look back and be like, oh shit, I've been loving myself this whole time. But the thoughts in my head, my own fucking mind was betraying me. So, if I could save some people from walking the path that I did, with all the self-loathing and the prison that I created in my own mind, well, that's abundance. God will provide. Not because I sit here and do nothing and receive. No, because God is in me, in the biology, experiencing the world that it created. Because it wanted to understand us so intimately. Because that's unconditional love. And that means both extremes. You know, I'll leave it on this. I was debating with myself, and maybe in the comments section, I didn't care to. They may have been comments. I called them pollinations a lot of the time, although looking back at some of them, they were definitely comments. But anyway, I was thinking of this thing of duality, because people like to put everything in a fucking box, right? Good, bad, right, wrong, this, that, whatever. And so looking at the spectrum, I was asking the question, well, are there endpoints to the things that we describe as good or evil or love and hate, for example? These polar opposites. Or is it just go on infinitely in both directions? And what I landed on, because at first I was thinking it was that. There were no endpoints. Then I was thinking and witnessing in my own life that there are endpoints. And that might be different for each individual depending on what we're talking about. But if we're talking about, say for example, expressions of fear and love, and once you take into account all these different interactions, culturally, familially, societally, the human expression between these endpoints is infinite, much like the synaptic gap. That white gap, light from the darkness, the infinite void, mechanical stress, the thought. What are your thoughts doing today? Are they on loop? Do you have the tools to interrupt the loop? If not, comment. I need to look at some of my new comments anyway. It's been a while. I need to interact with the community if I hope to have a community. So, thanks again. Talk to you later. Have a good day.